Have you ever wondered what happens when curiosity crosses the line? When you step into a place that's meant to stay forgotten, something ancient, something dark, waiting in the shadows? Tonight, I'm going to take you on a journey where there's no turning back. A place where the whispers you hear aren't just figments of your imagination. A place where the past never stays buried. But remember, once you enter, you might never find your way out. So, are you ready to face your fears? Are you brave enough to uncover the truth? Because what I'm about to tell you is not for the faint-hearted. Keep watching, if you dare. It all started like any other thrill-seeking adventure. Alex and Sam had run out of places to explore in our quiet town. We'd combed through every old church, every closed-down store, and decaying house we could find. You know the type, roofs collapsing, air thick with dampness, and lost memories. But honestly, we were restless. We wanted something bigger, something more terrifying. So, when Sam brought up Brookfield Asylum, it felt like the next step. At least that's what we told ourselves. Come on, it's supposed to be haunted, Sam said, his eyes lighting up like a kid on Halloween. I still remember how he said it, almost like he dared us to refuse. Naturally, we didn't. We laughed and nodded, pretending we weren't spooked at all. The place had a reputation. Everyone knew that it was deep in the woods, isolated from civilization, and the tales surrounding it were more than just spooky bedtime stories. People whispered about experiments done there, cruel and inhuman ones. They said that the souls of those who suffered still lingered. Some even claimed that people who ventured in never came back. But that was just rumor, right? Or so we kept telling ourselves as we grabbed our flashlights and snacks, and piled into Alex's beat-up old car. It started raining during the drive, a gentle sprinkle at first, but soon it was pouring. The narrow dirt path, winding between the trees, blurred into a watery mess. Sam sat in the back seat, chattering non-stop about the asylum's history, how it had been closed down in the 1960s, and how people said you could hear cries if you really listened. Dude, you're not helping, I said, trying to keep my voice even. But between the howling wind and the relentless rain hammering the car, it felt like the forest itself didn't want us there. Alex gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Scared? He asked with a grin, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. I forced a laugh, even though my stomach twisted with nerves. We didn't stop. Not until we reached the foot of Brookfield Asylum. And when we did, it was worse than I'd imagined. The building loomed over us like a dark specter, far more imposing than it looked in the photos. Windows were shattered, vines snaked across the cracked stone walls, and the rain made everything shine as if the asylum were sweating. I shivered, not just from the cold, but from something else. The air felt different here, heavy, almost suffocating. We parked a short distance away, just in case anyone passed by. Though it was unlikely this far out, I hesitated as I opened the car door. For a moment, I almost suggested we turn back. But then I caught Sam's expression, excited, practically buzzing, and I swallowed my fear. I didn't want to be the one to chicken out. As we crept toward the asylum, we all heard it. A voice. Faint but clear. Come join us, it whispered, as though someone stood just behind us. My heart raced, and I spun around, seeing only trees and shadows blurred by the rain. Probably just someone else pulling a prank, Alex said, though he sounded unsure. Sam chuckled. Or maybe the ghosts want company. He waggled his brows. I tried to laugh, too, but it came out strained. Sam was right, there was something here. Something wrong. We found a broken window and climbed in one by one. The moment I dropped into the basement, the stench hit me, decay and mildew, thick and overwhelming. I gagged, pulling my shirt over my nose. Lovely, I muttered, my voice echoing against the cold concrete. Welcome to Brookfield Asylum, Sam declared in a fake announcer's tone. Alex smirked, but the edge in his laugh told me he was just as uneasy as I was. The basement was pitch black. Our flashlights barely pierced the darkness. The walls were covered in graffiti, mostly names and dates, but some markings I couldn't make sense of. Symbols that seemed to shift and blur if I looked at them too long. We pressed on, each step echoing on the damp floor, slick under our feet. The deeper we went, the more the air pressed down on us, thick and suffocating. I told myself it was just nerves, just the stories creeping in. But then we heard it again, a laugh. Soft and playful, but wrong. It drifted down the corridor. The hair on my arm stood up. "Guess we're not alone," Sam joked, but his grin faltered. I managed a weak smile in return, though we'd only been inside a few minutes and already I regretted coming. The smell, the eerie symbols, the way the building groaned and shifted like it was breathing, it all felt too real. "You hear that?" Alex asked, freezing. His flashlight fixed on the hallway. I strained to listen. And yeah, there it was, a faint whisper. My heart thudded in my chest, and I glanced at Sam. He shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Probably just the wind," he said, but his eyes darted around. We moved on, the whispers following. The building seemed to grow with each step. "We should split up," Sam suggested suddenly, turning to us with eyes wide with thrill. My stomach tightened. I'd seen enough movies to know splitting up was bad news, but Sam was already pointing out directions, and Alex was nodding. "I don't know," I started, but Sam's daring look shut me up. "We won't find anything if we stick together," he said. "We've got flashlights, we'll be fine." I swallowed hard. "Okay, but we meet back here in 10 minutes, I said, my voice trembling. "Deal," Sam said, clapping my shoulder before striding off. His light bobbed as he disappeared. Alex flashed me a small smile before heading the other way. Suddenly, I was alone. The silence swallowed me. My breathing loud in my ears. I shone my flashlight down the cracked walls, the paint curling away in long strips. Rusted gurneys leaned against the walls, their history best left imagined. I walked carefully, feet slipping on the damp floor. Every creak, every flicker of the flashlight made me jump. The whispering never stopped, always just out of reach. "It's just the wind," I whispered to myself, but I knew it wasn't. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow and steady from behind me. "Sam?" I called, my voice shaky. No reply. Just footsteps, getting closer now. I spun around, the light shaking wildly, but there was nothing. Just shadows. I took a step back, every instinct telling me to run. Something was wrong, very wrong. I turned and picked up my pace, the flashlight flickering. Come on," I muttered, shaking it. It steadied for a moment, and I exhaled. Then I saw it. A figure at the end of the hall, standing perfectly still. It looked like Sam, facing away. "Sam?" I called, my voice thin. He didn't respond or move. When I stepped closer, I noticed the details. His clothes matched mine, down to every tear and stain. His hair, too. My blood turned cold as the figure began to turn. Even before it fully faced me, I knew it wasn't Sam. It was me. Its eyes were dark, hollow, and its mouth curved into a grin that twisted my stomach. "Hello," it said in my voice, but warped, like a broken speaker. My knees shook, and I bolted. I didn't look back. My only thought was to find the others and escape. The footsteps followed. Louder. Faster. My shoes slipped on the wet floor, but I kept moving, heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear. I had to find Alex. Had to get out before it was too late. The asylum seemed to shift around me. Each shadow reached for me. I burst through a door, slamming it shut and pressing against it. My breath was ragged. The only sound was the rain hammering the walls. The room was dim, peeling paint and rusted hooks. Books lined the walls, some kind of storage room, I guessed. I shivered, wiping sweat from my face. "Alex?" I whispered, not wanting that thing to hear me. Only silence replied. Then a scream cut through the stillness. Faint but unmistakable. It was Alex. I bolted, flashlight beam trembling as I raced up a set of stairs. Heart in my throat, I could hear Alex again, his voice twisted with pain. I shouted, "Hold on," and reached the landing. There he was, standing at the far end of the hall, facing the wall. "Alex?" I called, relief and dread colliding. He didn't turn or react. I slowed, every instinct warning me to stop. I touched his shoulder. He turned. Alex's face was blank. Empty. The Alex I knew, the one who laughed and joked, the one who'd kept me from running out of the asylum in fear, was gone. His eyes were dull, hollow, and his mouth twisted into a grin that wasn't his. I stepped back, heart hammering. "Alex?" I whispered again, my voice barely a sound. He didn't respond. The air grew heavier, colder, as though the very building was pressing down on us. The walls seemed to move closer with each breath I took. I reached out, my fingers brushing his arm. The moment my skin touched his, it was like I'd touched ice. I recoiled, feeling a chill shoot up my spine. This wasn't Alex. It couldn't be. He turned slowly to face me, his movements jerky, unnatural. "I'm right here," he said, but it wasn't his voice. It was deep and hollow, like an echo from far away. My stomach churned. I backed away, tripping over a piece of broken furniture and landing on the cold floor with a hard thud. I didn't care. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing, mind spiraling into panic. I had to get out of here. This place, this thing, whatever it wasn't going to stop. I ran, faster than I thought was possible, my shoes pounding against the floors that seemed to stretch and warp beneath me. I could still hear Alex's voice calling my name from behind, distant and muffled, like it was coming from underwater. "Don't leave me," he pleaded. I ignored it. I couldn't look back. I needed to find Sam. We needed to leave before whatever this was took us, too. I ran through the maze of halls, trying every door, but they were all locked. Desperation clawed at me. Each door seemed to mock me, like it had a secret to keep. In the distance, I saw someone moving. "Sam?" I called, relief flooding my chest. But as the figure drew closer, I saw it wasn't Sam. It was another version of me, staring back at me with wide, unblinking eyes. The figure didn't move. The figure didn't breathe. It simply stood there, unmoving, staring at me with the same distorted grin. It was like looking into a mirror, but I couldn't see myself. I could only see the thing that wasn't me. "Leave me alone!" I screamed, backing away, my voice echoing down the empty hallway. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. The air was so thick with tension, it was almost suffocating. I had to get out. I needed to find Sam, Alex, someone. But all I could find were these things, these twisted versions of us, of people we once were. They were all around me now, blocking every path, every exit. "Help me," I begged, but there was no answer. The figures just stood there, silent and still, watching me with their empty eyes. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Panic was flooding my mind, drowning out everything else. I turned and ran again, but this time, the walls began to change. The once familiar asylum began to shift, the floors tilting, the ceilings lowering. It felt like the building itself was alive, like it was breathing with me, and I was trapped in its lungs. I stumbled into another room, this one dark, colder than the others, and I couldn't see anything. I heard something. A shuffle. A drag. A voice, low and guttural, calling my name. "Where are you?" it whispered. "Come back to us." I whirled around, trying to find the source of the voice, but all I saw were the shadows, deep, thick shadows that seemed to writhe and move, as though they were alive. "Please, no," I breathed, my throat dry with fear. And then, from the corner of the room, something moved. Slowly. Methodically. The shadows parted, and in the dim light, I saw something, standing there. Her face was pale, almost translucent, her eyes wide and hollow. Her mouth was stretched in a horrific smile, and her fingers, long and skeletal, reached out toward me. "Come play with us," she whispered, her voice a rasping whisper that felt like nails on a chalkboard. I couldn't move. I was frozen, unable to tear my eyes away from her. Her lips parted, revealing sharp, jagged teeth, too many teeth, too sharp, too long. She took a step closer, her body swaying unnaturally. "Please," I whispered, my voice cracking, my hands shaking. "Why won't you join us?" she asked, her voice growing louder, more demanding. I stumbled backward, my legs weak, my mind reeling. Her eyes followed me, never blinking, never moving. I turned, desperate for an escape, but the room had changed. The door I'd entered through had disappeared. The walls were closing in. The ceiling was dropping. I could feel the weight of it. The weight of everything closing in on me. I gasped, my chest tight, and my flashlight flickered, casting long, warped shadows across the room. "Help me!" I screamed, but the words barely escaped my throat. The figure in front of me stepped forward again. Her skeletal hand reached out and gripped my wrist. Her fingers dug into my skin, cold and tight. I tried to pull away, but it was like trying to break free from stone. The pain shot through me, sharp and unrelenting, as I tried to scream. But all I could hear was her voice. "You can't escape," she hissed. "You'll never leave. None of you will." Her grip tightened, and I felt the darkness creeping up my legs, my arms, my chest. It was suffocating. It was pulling me into the floor, the walls, the very air itself. "No!" I yelled, struggling, panicking. But it was too late. The floor beneath me seemed to crack open, and I felt myself being pulled into the darkness. It wasn't like falling, it was like sinking, like being swallowed whole by the asylum itself. I screamed, but it was drowned out by the sound of something loud. I snapped my eyes open, gasping for air, my body drenched in sweat. I was back in the hallway, standing alone. But nothing made sense anymore. The asylum around me had changed. It was darker. More twisted. The walls were no longer just cracked stone and peeling paint, they were slick, wet, and dripping. I couldn't tell if I had just woken from a nightmare or if I was still inside it. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever this place was, it wasn't going to let me go. Not ever. The air felt heavier, like something was pressing down on me, suffocating me. I took another step forward, but the ground beneath me seemed to tremble, almost alive, shifting as though it had its own intentions. Every breath felt labored. I couldn't escape the feeling that I wasn't alone. The hairs on my neck stood up, and I stopped, trying to listen, to hear something, anything. It was then I realized the silence was not a peaceful stillness, but a tense, unbearable quiet that was more oppressive than any noise. I turned around. The hallway stretched endlessly behind me. No sign of Alex or Sam. Nothing but the dark, cold walls that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. I needed to find them. I had to. I walked faster, my footsteps echoing in the empty hall, until I heard something, soft at first, like a whisper. "Alex?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper, trembling in the air. But there was no reply. just that same unsettling silence. Then, the whisper came again, clearer now, like it was in my ear. "Come back." I froze. I wasn't sure if I'd heard it or if it was just my mind playing tricks on me. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice breaking. The whisper came again, but this time, it wasn't Alex. "You can't leave." "Not yet." I tried to shake off the feeling that something was watching me. But it was impossible. It was like the walls themselves were alive, staring at me, judging me, waiting for me to make a mistake. The coldness of the air intensified. It wasn't just temperature, it felt wrong. Like I was breathing in something that didn't belong in this world. I turned and ran. My feet carried me faster down the dark hallway, heart pounding in my chest. Every step felt like it was taking me deeper into some sort of nightmare. I glanced over my shoulder. The hallway behind me was now completely dark, an inky void that seemed to stretch on forever. I couldn't look back. I had to keep moving. But as I turned another corner, the path ahead seemed to distort. It wasn't the same hallway I had just passed through. The walls looked different, as though the asylum was shifting around me. I blinked, trying to clear my vision, but it didn't help. The hallway twisted and curved like a maze, one that I couldn't escape from. I stumbled, disoriented, but kept moving forward. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. "You'll never get out," they taunted. I couldn't stop. I couldn't let it win. I heard a creak ahead, like a door opening, and my heart raced as I sprinted toward it. Maybe there was a way out. Maybe I could escape. But as I reached the doorway, a figure appeared, blocking my exit. It was Sam. At least, I thought it was her. But something was terribly wrong. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, her lips stretched into a smile that didn't belong on her face. "Sam?" I gasped, stepping back. She didn't respond. Her body moved unnaturally, like she was being controlled by something else. I turned, desperate to find another way out, but then another figure appeared in front of me. It was Alex. But it wasn't Alex. His face was pale, his eyes empty, like he was a shell of the person I knew. "Alex, what's happening?" I cried, but he didn't answer. Instead, his eyes locked onto mine, and the air grew colder still. "You shouldn't have come back," he said, his voice hollow, unnatural. I took a step back. No, this isn't real. You're not real." But they didn't respond. They only stared at me, their expressions twisted in a grotesque parody of the people I once knew. The air was thick with tension. I could feel the walls closing in, pressing down on me from all sides. A cold hand grabbed my arm, and I screamed. I tried to pull away, but the grip tightened, like iron, cold and unforgiving. The figure behind me stepped forward, revealing its face fully. It was Alex. Or, it looked like him. His face was contorted, his eyes black voids, his features no longer human. "You can't escape," it whispered. "You're part of us now." I tried to scream, to fight, but my body wouldn't respond. I was paralyzed, frozen in place, unable to move. No. Let me go." I struggled, but it was no use. I felt my body being dragged away, pulled deeper into the asylum's heart. I could see the darkness swirling around me, consuming everything. The walls began to close in, shifting, moving like they were alive. The asylum itself was trapping me, suffocating me. The last thing I saw before the darkness overtook me was Sam's face. She was smiling, but it wasn't the smile of a friend. It was a smile of someone who had already been consumed. And then, everything went black. The emptiness surrounded me, and I couldn't tell where I was anymore. Time didn't exist. It was as if I was floating in a void, a never-ending nightmare with no end. I couldn't escape. I couldn't breathe. But deep in the darkness, I could hear a voice, faint and distant. Welcome home. Thank you for joining me in this chilling tale. But don't think this is over. There are more stories to uncover, more dark corners to explore. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next terrifying chapter. Who knows what's lurking around the corner in our next video? Stay tuned, and remember, once you step into the darkness, it's hard to find your way back out.